All right, so here is another Sasquatch story for you all that was told directly to me from a very good friend of mine who I've known since I was 16 years old. And this friend of mine and I, it's kind of funny, we met years ago, 16 years old. I was a deckhand on a commercial trolling salmon trawler. And my skipper's best friend had a trawler, and his nephew was his deckhand, and our two boats went basically the same places all summer long. So that deckhand was my buddy Matt, and he was like, we were basically each other's only friends all summer long for a few seasons commercial fishing. And we left there, and our lives carried on, and Matt stuck with fishing. And it was so funny because over the years, 6 years later or something, 6-7 years later, I was in the middle of absolute nowhere on the San Juan River, not far from where my grandfather had bumped into that Sasquatch. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I was floating down the river in a canoe in a spring bear season and fishing steelhead, and I got on the beach there, and I went across a big gravel bar and was up on a huge root pile. I was probably 300 yards away from the water, and I'm sitting up there camouflaging on my rifle, looking for bears. And all of a sudden, a drift boat comes down with 3 guys in it, and they're so far away. Their faces, you can just see their faces are the color of pink flesh. And I'm looking at them. I'm like, there's no way they're going to see me. And all of a sudden, the guy rowing, he looks over, and he's sitting there, and he looks, and he goes, "Is that Steve?" I'm like, "What?" And that was so bizarre. And I'm like, yeah? So I jumped down off the root ball. I could run over there. There's my buddy Matt. And I don't know how he recognized me. He goes, "I didn't really recognize you." He goes, "I just kind of knew it was you." So that was really funny. And there was another time about 3 or 4 years later. It's barping snow, middle of winter. I'm on the Cowichan River, walking the trail, steelhead fishing by myself, and I'm in the dark shadows under the big cedar boughs, barping snow. Got the toque on, everything's bundled up, and I'm steelhead fishing. And all of a sudden, here comes a drift boat coming down. They got one of those little kerosene space heater things going, and they're all huddled up, and they're covered in snow, and they're drifting by me, and I can't really see their faces. Everything's dark, and hood's over. And all of a sudden, here he goes, "Is that Steve?" I'm like, "What?" "Yeah." And it was my buddy Matt again. So funny. Then years later, not that many years ago, maybe 6 years ago or something, I'm at home here in Pemberton, and I'm watching TV, and it's a fishing show. And it was a guy guiding these guys for steelhead. It was my buddy Matt again. Now I see him on TV. I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to give that ding dong a call, So I phoned him up. He's in Provo Bernie. I said, "I'm coming over. We're going steelhead fishing." And we spent a couple days steelhead fishing. I think we caught like 23 or 24 steelhead. Hooked them in 2 days. Had a blast. Got caught up. And the topic of Sasquatch came up. Okay? And he hadn't seen one before, and he was on the fence, but he's really very curious about the topic when we spoke about it. And the reason I had to tell you this was, it'll explain why he got a hold of me, a few years later, all frantic and excited. Because a handful of years later, and now my friend has a remote fishing lodge up in Cayucit, which is remote West Coast Vancouver Island, boat access only. And what they do there is they guide for salmon and halibut in the summertime, and then later on in the fall, they switch over to Zodiacs with jet drives, and they go up those remote rivers right nearby, and they take fly fishing guests, and they fly fish those great big huge late season coho. And these pristine, untouched Amazon, this pristine, untouched Amazon-y like rainforest and river coming out of those remote hills. So he phoned me up, and he was all excited and freaked out, and he told me that he had the Zodiac loaded with 4 guests, as usual. They went up the river, beached the Zodiac. 3 guests stayed on the gravel bar down by the Zodiac. Him and another guest started hiking way up the river. Hiking up to go try another run farther up. And he said that they were out of sight. He said they were 300 or 400 yards up the river from where they left the Zodiac and the other guests fly fishing. And he got up and went around the bend. And he said this roar, this screaming roar, came blasting out of the timber right there across the river from them. And he said it was about 150 yards away. And he said it was absolutely terrifying. He said the noise was so loud, it was absolutely ridiculous, just absolutely terrifying. No way it was a human being, obviously. No way it was anything else. And him and the angler with him, were like, let's get the hell out of here. And they start booking it down the river. Now think of the distance, 300 or 400 yards away downriver is where the Zodiac and the guests are, and that thing screened them 100 yards. He figures 100, 150-ish away in the trees that way. And when they came in view of the other guests, they were already scrambling to get into the Zodiac, terrified from that roar scream that came out of that forest. And they were 300 or 400 yards away from them, okay? Think of the impact and the decibels that roar must have had to scare the living crap out of those people way down there. Now, keep in mind, I've known Matt since we were 16 years old. And I'm not, in the knowledge I have on this topic by now, it's not even, I'm not even surprised. You know, but it's just interesting to hear the story. He said they went back up there again. I mean, they have to. That's the rivers he has permission from the natives to guide on. That's where he's got to go. And he said they went back up there to that very spot 2 days later, and he said there's a great big log with the root ball on the top jammed and stabbed down into the run of the river where they were fishing, in the middle of the run. And this thing was stabbed into the middle of the river right there for them to see, I guess. And I don't know what that meant. Maybe it meant, come by this and we're going to have words, whatever it meant. But that was a really interesting phone call from a friend of mine who I've known all my life. And then moving along, so the winter, the summer after I healed from my mosquito attack in the third world country earlier, you know, I went to the Vancouver Island and I got a salmon out of Bamfield for a couple months. And then I went up to go guide for my buddy Matt. And there's a native reserve right there, reserve lands right there in Cayucit. And one night we had a campfire with a few other guides from Murphy Sport Fishing and a couple native guides who lived there as well. And they knew who I was from online. And the topic of Sasquatch came up, and sure enough, they all had 2 or 3 stories each. And it was just matter of fact. They weren't talking about it like it was, you know, a myth or surprising. They just said, oh yeah. The one guy says, oh yeah, me and my dad, or his uncle, him and his uncle, were running on a sport boat out, and they said they saw one right on shore by a concrete marker. He said it was just standing right there on the point, and they went, holy crap, look at that Sasquatch. Said it was a reddish brown one, and they went to rifle the boat in towards it, and it threw like a small to medium-sized log. Said that it threw the log at them, sailing through the air and landed in the ocean. They said they could not believe how far that thing winged that chunk of wood. And that was another interesting story. And then recently, this last winter, and I will show you the text volley that I got, my buddy Matt, once again, what was I doing? I was just leaving again, because I just went this year again to go around the world. And I believe I was just leaving to hit the airport, and he texted me that 2 of his native guides from up there were pit lamping between Campbell River and Zavalis. And pit lamping is with a big spotlight, so you can spot the eyes of elk and deer and shoot them. And it's legal for them to do that here. And they both had big spotlights. And, well, you can read the text here. They were spotlighting, and I guess I don't have the text in front of me. You'll see them right here. I'll edit them in. But from what I remember, they were spotlighting, and they got the lights. They were near some elk, and they saw a set of lights close to them right there, but really wide apart. And they put the spotlights on it, and I forget, we'll see in the text I show here, but I believe it was an 8 or 9 foot tall black male Sasquatch. And they put the lights on it, and they said it got real angry, roar, screamed at them, and started shredding the trees right there, the alder trees. And they were absolutely terrified. They didn't think 1 second to shoot it. And they had phoned Matt immediately when they got back and told him about it, and he started texting me immediately. I'm like, holy cow. You know, if it wasn't for me having to go to the airport the very next day, I think I would have actually jumped in the ferry and drove out there and went and made them take me there and see if either see it or see some footprints maybe. But anyway, so that's pretty interesting, you know, and it's really interesting how many stories you actually come across, or I do, without even trying, without even looking, you know, because whatever, it is what it is. I'm not going out of my way to find those things, and I'm definitely not going out of my way to prove it to anybody. But, you know, obviously there's a lot of people that see these things, and a lot of people that get discredited. So I guess once again, I'm going to be the voice for all those people publicly, and stand up for them. And and share the information with everybody, because like I said a few videos back, it's time to turn it around. And good, honest, hardworking people are credible, and they should be treated that way. It's not right, and it's not acceptable to automatically discredit good, honest people. Okay? There you go. So there's another Sasquatch story. And yeah, I got lots coming. You know, I have been here for a while, and just so you guys know how busy I have been and how busy I am, trying to squeeze in these videos is very difficult. I've got 3-4 job sites on the go right now. We've got 5 apps to maintain. We're trying to video and edit over 400 new videos for content for other apps coming up. We're trying to launch 2 more apps. I got 60 trail cameras. I got to get out in the different various places in the mountains and do all those hikes and get those cameras out and do salt licks, plan hunts. It's endless, and it's all right now. It's all stacked up on top of each other right now. And then I've got a pile of people, probably going to be pushing 50,000 subscribers here on this YouTube channel alone. And I got all these people, all you people out there hammering on me to give you more stories. And all I can say is they're coming. And it takes a lot of time, but they're coming. I'll keep doing it. But this is the absolute chaos time of the year. Okay, so be patient. And again, I can't read all the comments. I definitely can't reply to them. You know, we also got 5 other social media pages on the go and a few websites. It's just a little overwhelming, but I do appreciate all of the real good comments, which the majority of them are, I believe, and the encouraging, positive words. You're not going unnoticed, okay? And it's really, really appreciated. So thank you for the encouragement, and make sure you encourage other people all the time too, all right? And share your own stories, and don't be scared. Hunt stories.